Thanks for staying on. The Newsfeed Late Night continues. Sinawo Thambo now is joining us, head of the EFF's presidency, to talk to us about the reaction from the address by President Cyril Ramaphosa tonight. Sinawo, good evening and thank you for your time tonight. What do you make of what the president had to say? The EFF always against the reopening of schools. The president tonight saying a decision has been taken to take a break, particularly by public schools, for the next 4 weeks. Does this make a difference?
Well, thank you very much and greetings to your viewers. Firstly, I think the EFF, of course, as you've outlined, is vindicated in terms of that schools should be closed during the COVID-19 pandemic. And for us, it's particularly disappointing that the president seems to have an appetite to have an exhibition of a loss of life and an exhibition of a rapid increase in infections for him to take logical decisions that would be in the protection of human life. We are the ones who had warned President Cyril Ramaphosa that he must close international ports of entry soon enough to prevent the entrance of the COVID-19 virus into South Africa. He did not heed this advice. We are the ones who had warned President Cyril Ramaphosa that they must not encourage people who have the infection at a point at which infections were extremely low, that people must not self-quarantine, but rather be quarantined by the state. He refused to heed this advice. We are, of course, the ones who had said that the alcohol ban must be imposed and not uplifted. And all reopening of the economy and social activities in South African society must be based on scientific and epidemiological advice. He did not heed this advice as well. And of course, this resulted in an overburdening of health infrastructure in South Africa in the trauma units, which were overburdened by alcohol-related incidents. And of course, we had warned that the experiment, which was advised by Dr. Des Salim Karim, that schools must reopen in the midst of the coronavirus, is a cruel experiment with the lives of children. So, of course, we are vindicated today, but of course disappointed that the president does not operate on foresight, but rather he wants an exhibition of a loss of life and a rise in infections.
What do you make of the Democratic Alliance's response to say, well, this closing of schools is only going to promote inequality? Because, I mean, the president speaks about the taking a break by public schools. He didn't outline much about the private schools.
Well, the Democratic Alliance can't seem to have a concern for equality at this point in time, because when schools are reopened during the coronavirus pandemic, right, we must have an understanding that there's infrastructural inequality in South Africa. So private schools and public schools have a different level of reaction, and the coronavirus has a different impact on public versus private schools. So the inequality has been there, and of course is heightened in light of the coronavirus pandemic's presence. Public schools do not have proper infrastructure at the level of water and sanitation. They use pit toilets. We've seen in the Eastern Cape Western alcohol sanitizers, which have alcohol content of about 4%, are distributed because of high rates of corruption. So there can't be a concern for inequality at the level of when public schools, which are constituted by the majority black people in this country, when of course there's already infrastructural inequality at that level. So it's an insincere concern. And of course we do want there to be a looking into as to the operational continuation, the operations continuing in private schools as well, because that will have an effect on long-term educational projections in this country in terms of who enters the job market, in terms of who enters institutions of higher learning as well. So those in private schools, which are predominantly constituted by white citizens, are going to have an upper hand and an edge on those who are the majority in this country. And that's an inequality that must concern us far more than opening up public schools and exposing young black children to the coronavirus pandemic.
The school nutrition program set to continue where parents will be able to still go to schools and get the nutrition that the kids require, and that is guaranteed in the constitution of the country. That, I'm sure, it is a welcome decision.
Of course, we do welcome all social intervention measures that will alleviate poverty in this country. That has been a consistent stance of ours. So it goes against the presumed narrative that the economic freedom fighters' stance on only reopening the economy based on science is one that is anti-people and anti-livelihoods. The state does have a responsibility to provide social welfare to people, particularly in a time of a pandemic. A pandemic must be read in the same context as a war condition. We're in a state of a war against an invisible enemy, and our people must be able to rely on the state, which must take care of the social values we need as part of a social contract that citizens have with the state. So we welcome the continuation of nutrition programs as well. But I think the caution we'd like to pass on to the president is that his confidence and he's bragging about the low mortality rate in South African society in relation to COVID-19 related deaths is misplaced, and we are cautioning him not to be too proud, because the South African Medical Research Council is reporting that in this current moment in time, there are 59% more reported deaths which are of natural causes in South Africa, which is far more than what has been recorded based on historical data in this country. So this means that there's a high possibility that natural deaths in this country are being recorded as natural deaths and not as COVID-19 related. And that's something that is concerning. And of course, we had warned that data relating to this pandemic must be handled by health professionals and not politicians, because they are the ones who can distort data in order to suit their narratives. And this is the narrative that I think we must all be careful of. So we'd like to caution the president to not be too boastful about low mortality rates when he's very well aware of the corruption in this country, very well aware of the infrastructural problems and incapacity to record data effectively in the health sector of this country.
Sinawo Thambo, appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us tonight. Sinawo Thambo, EFF's head of the presidency. They're giving us reaction from the economic freedom fighters.